For more stories like these, go to www.social-tv.co.za, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on our social mediums.
You're listening to our social newscast with me, Sam Marshall, brought to you by www.social-tv.co.za. Today we have a chat to Babazile Mbetse, who's the head of PR for Liberty Group South Africa. And these guys have created an online series called Blue Table Sessions, and they hope to unearth the value women bring to the economy. Babazile joins us now. This Blue Table Sessions comes at a time when we've just heard that nearly 3 million South Africans have lost their jobs, and the overwhelming majority of that are women. Just talk to me about kind of the role of Blue Table Sessions as we're experiencing with this pandemic, and how you're meant to stimulate conversation.
Right. Thank you, Sam. So I think a very quick background is that within the Liberty Group, we are currently just going through a rebranding process where we just want to take a step back and really understand what our purpose is. And one of the things that we are so passionate about is that we are a brand that is centered within humanity, right? So the pandemic comes at a time when we are in the middle of this work. And one of the things that we felt was very necessary was to have the relevant conversations, even in the midst of this pandemic. And what we have found, and what you and I probably know, Sam, is that, women form a very part of the economy of South Africa, right? And women actually do a lot more work that they don't necessarily, get paid for. And this could be in the form of housework, right? We wear many hats. We wear hats in corporate. So, we wear hats in boardrooms, and then we get back home and we become mothers and partners and sisters and caregivers. And that is not the type of work that would typically you'd typically be paid for. But it's important to have the conversation. And what the Blue Table sessions bring is an opportunity, a virtual opportunity, to bring around different women that come from different spheres of life to talk about what their realities are, right? And some of the things that we do know for sure is that, retrenchment rates are at a shocking rate. And as you've alluded to that, and some of those people that are facing retrenchment are women themselves, right? And then the research that we have done points to the fact that women actually bring economic power to the table, contrary to popular belief. So we wanted an opportunity to just, have these conversations and even talk about very serious things such as, gender-based violence and the impact that it is having on women and the country and the economy. So it's a 6-part series initially, and we have entrusted a well-known financial journalist, Gugulethu Mfuphi, to be the moderator. And what she does is, within a virtual table, brings together 4 women. It could be somebody that is influential in their workspace, and it could be somebody that is a digital creator, or it could be somebody that is even in the financial services industry. Those are 3 different types of women who have 3 different types of life experiences. So she brings them around the table, and they have conversations such as, what power do women have that they bring around the economy of South Africa, and how do we take that power and elevate it so that we empower other women, even men. A very key topic as well is around transitioning, right? We know that this COVID period has really changed a lot of people's lives, a lot of them for the bad. We also know that in terms of our finances, it is such a big struggle. You are now having to plan within your budget for extras, medical supplies, diesel, if you are in Gauteng, where we are experiencing power outages, and if you are lucky enough to have a generator, you probably need to fill in that generator with diesel now and then. You now have extra things that you now need to pay for that you ordinarily wouldn't have possibly budgeted for. Some households, Sam, have had their income cut. One partner has probably experienced retrenchment, right? All these issues that are impacting a broad part of the society. We're dealing with mental health because, people aren't really coping very well in this pandemic. So one of the topics, for instance, that is very close to my heart is we're talking about what do you do when you find yourself in this situation? And one of the speakers that we have, or one of our guests, is actually a financial advisor, a female financial advisor that talks about transitioning. So whether it's transitioning because you no longer have the same income that you had, or whether you are now separated from your partner, or whether you are moving regions from one region to another. But a life-changing moment in your life needs somebody to just guide you and take you through the process.
When I saw this headline, Liberty has launched a series of online sessions to unearth the value women bring to the economy. That unearthing word bothers me a little because it says that even in 2020, 20 odd years into a democracy, countless of Women Month celebrations that we've experienced over the last couple of years, and the fact that everybody around the table agrees that women bring so much to the economy. We are seeing some stellar examples of it. Not enough, but we are. Why are we still talking about the word unearthing? It feels as if we don't know.
Absolutely. As I said earlier, I think women play such a primary role, in their families, in society. And unfortunately, even in corporate, right? Unfortunately, we're just not compensated enough. It's historic, we know this. And we are still having to have these conversations because, if we don't have them, if we don't have these conversations, it'll just be business as usual, right? Which is why we are saying, that we want to unearth this value because it exists. So what better way to actually just make it come to the fore? It's by us continuing to have this conversation. The beauty about the series, Sam, is that we just decided as well that if we are to change the narrative, we actually want men to also be part of the conversation. So we have men as some of our speakers and some of our guests, within the 6-part series. Very interestingly, you wouldn't have thought that that would be the case. And we've selected men that we feel are quite dynamic in their own field. So, for instance, we've got a chef, right? Chef Wandi for those that live in Johannesburg. We've got a doctor as well, in the discussion. We've got an entrepreneur, So what we're saying is, if this narrative needs to change, can we also get the men around the table so that it's not just us talking to ourselves, talking to the converted, but we want to hear these voices, and we hope that these male voices will also just take the conversation further, so that next year we're still not unearthing. We're there already, right? And you mentioned a very important point. Absolutely. According to a report of findings that we did as part of this process, we found that women contribute over 48% of South Africa's GDP, right? 27% less than men. And yet, again, we still find ourselves having these discussions.
Yeah.
We like the fact that we are not taking a back seat. We are saying we will keep talking about these issues until, we feel that we are equally recognized. There is equal pay. We no longer have to be screaming and shouting to men to respect us and to stop violating us. It is critical that as women, irrespective of Women's Month, we have these important conversations.
Just to jump in there, Babazile, obviously conversations are important. That's actually how the work starts. You need to have a dialogue and you need people around the table to be like-minded. What
Right.
happens after this online series? How do we stop this from being another talk shop and another shared experience and there's no change afterwards?
Very important question. You know, I'm always of the view that if you want to change a narrative, you need to start somewhere, right? So the dialogues are important. You're absolutely right. What we're hoping to achieve with the series is we're obviously starting the dialogue, but we really want to get into the minds and the souls and the hearts of South Africans to say we need to stop talking. To your point, we need changed behavior, and unfortunately, I cannot answer what it is that it will take for us to stop talking and for action to get started. But as a brand, as I said earlier, that is centered on humanity, we are going back to the basics. We're saying we are human before we are executives. We are human before we are an installment at the end of the month, right? And our appeal is let's spread the message. Let's make sure that we don't just keep talking. We take action. We make sure that even within our own circles, if you feel that something is not right, report it. If you feel that your own friends are actually, even emotionally abusing their partners, that is some form of violence. Call them out and make sure that you stop the behavior there and there. Because in some instances, people are not even aware, right? I always say to my friends who are not necessarily, in corporate, I always say to them, even us women that are in corporate, if you find yourself in a position where you can empower other women, absolutely, because if you change the life of one woman, you change a community, right? So it also begins with us so that we don't just talk shop, but we make a difference and obviously follow the correct channels,
Yep.
So if you yourself are in a position to be able to empower a female entrepreneur so that, their financial scale tilts up, do that if you're in a position to be able to do that.
Final question. I know we're coming to the end of our interview. We've got about 30 seconds left. If I am interested in the Blue Table sessions and I want to have access to it, where do I have to go? How often will it happen over the next couple of
Right.
weeks?
Okay. So if you want to be part of our Blue Table sessions, please follow Liberty Group SA on the social, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We will post the first episode on our YouTube channel. It's Liberty Group South Africa. And the first episode is Womenomics in Action. We have very interesting guests there, that talk about how money and power go hand in hand and how we use money to empower ourselves as women, as well as, our families and the economy, what we're battling right now in the COVID lockdown situation, and how we can all just be in it with each other, to empower each other. Take part, subscribe, follow us, comment over there, and every Wednesday thereafter, we will have all the other sessions. We have 6 episodes in total, and we're hoping that, we get positive feedback because we think it's conversations that we should continue having. I mean, as I said, we shouldn't be limited to Women's Month. We've got plans to expand on this forum and not necessarily, talk about women issues. We do want to talk about other issues going forward, but the first 6 episodes actually address women, and we're calling it the Womenomics section.
That sounds fantastic. Babazile, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Okay, that's Babazile Mbetse, who is the head of PR for Liberty Group South Africa, talking to us about Blue Table sessions that they're planning to host online. It's interesting, as Babazile mentioned, the men, women that will form part of these discussions.